Welcome, viewers. I'm just about to go through some of this and talk through a little bit about the lore of Sky, and just what these images mean. So the Sky was originally created as a sequel to Cloud, and maybe you know as well that it was also kind of built off of Journey. And I think they talk about that a little bit more later. But the game was designed before that game company studio was formed. It was actually a project, like a grad school project of Genova Chan. Sky began development in 2012 with a team of around 10 developers in the Santa Monica office. And so here we'll see some of the initial artwork that was around this time. And so here is the first image of Sky, was this striking pencil sketch of children flying together, their souls entwined into the shape of a mythical bird. And so this is Genova's drawing, and what's interesting here is that the mythical bird is what we players call the mega bird. And as I've been looking in the Sky art book, we're not the only ones. That in the art book it's also called mega bird. Mega bird you can see in some of the murals in Sky as you go around. I believe there's one in the Cave of Prophecies. I'll have to be... As I go further into the lore, I'll check and find out where all the Mega Bird is. The one that's the most obvious, I think, is in the ending when you finish Eye of Eden. In the kind of like the ending sequence, there's a big picture at the end of Mega Bird. So this initial concept that Genova has brought into the game has been here pretty much ever since the very beginning, the very entrance of this idea. And so here is, and this is in the art book, The Giant by American artist N.C. Wyeth was a central inspiration to Sky in the beginning. And so you see here there's children looking at the giant in the clouds, and the idea behind this was that when Sky was under development, there are a lot of ideas about meeting these kind of beings in the clouds and coming as children. And so this is, the concepts are really in a very early stage at this point. What the giant kind of transforms into in Sky is the elders. So you see that each of the elders is much bigger than us, and you'll see as we go through the art here that several different concepts for elders go, but this kind of was that initial inspiration. So what are we going to do? It's like children will be meeting the giants in the sky and the mythical figures in the sky. And here is the Little Prince. So Little Prince story themes became a reference in early development, which is quite interesting because, as you know, of course, there was a collaboration between Sky and the Little Prince, as we had the season of Little Prince, which is inside of Vault of Knowledge. The wing migration documentary informed us of the different conditions weathered by birds flying long distances. And so this also is in the art book. The overview effect was an impactful video shared by astronauts from the space station who talked about the sense of awe they felt from Earth gazing. This inspired an early painting in pre-production. And so here you see, this is actually it's a painting, in fact, that there's a kid flying over Earth, and interestingly, there's this little, black figure to the right here with like a red light, which I suppose it's probably way too early for them to have been thinking about the krill, but that's kind of the first thing that I think of when I see that. During our early art exploration, our first mood sketches were based on the idea of a child flying up to meet the giants in the sky. All right, so during this period, we painted different islands you could glide over. And so here, see, and look, even already it begins to look like the elders, right? So it's like a sky kid, and like the red, it's like that like that tassel that's off of the back of the character in Journey, and which I suppose this evolves eventually to become our Sky Kid's cape. And then here you go. We can see now the instead of it being that tassel in the back, it's a balloon that the Sky Kid's flying with. And then these giants, they look very Studio Ghibli-esque. This actually brings, at least for me, a lot of thought about Laputa Castle in the sky. It kind of looks like the robots that are up in the castle, and I'm sure. It doesn't say that here, but I'm sure there must be some inspiration as well from the Studio Ghibli. Here it says, we imagined a pathway of souls who encountered fantastic giants and creatures among the clouds. And this also really, really reminiscent of Laputa Castle in the sky. As I look at this, like a ruined castle floating in the sky, right? The freedom and feeling of soaring over grassy islands and oceans became a vital development goal. And then this is like, wow, Sanctuary Islands, right? 100%. And this is way, way before the season of Sanctuary, right? Season of Sanctuary was quite a bit after the Sky was released. So they must have seen this photo in this drawing. And Yuichiro Tanabe is one of the artists that I believe is still working with Sky, with that game company. You'll see a lot of the artwork here is given this credit. So for me, this is, wow, this is like they must have gone through their files and pulled this up and went, well, this is Sanctuary Islands. And again, this is like obviously the bird nest area, right? Like very like butterflies. That it looks almost exactly like it. So you see, like a lot of these early drawings really are a strong inspiration for what we see in the game today. Our goal was to make the Sky Child avatars representative of any type of player. Instead of a face, we added masks, so you can choose your own expression and look. And also, you know, what's fantastic is the skin color being this kind of charcoal color, you know, like a grayish color, and the hair always being white. And I just think it makes it, it helps, the look of our Sky Children helps to dissolve the boundaries that we may have between each other, that we sometimes unknowingly have these boundaries in life. And so when we see these Sky Kids, other Sky Kids, maybe especially moths, we say, hey, that person's like me. And it's easier to go up and befriend them. Although it was sketched in 2015, this group image foreshadowed the artistic evolution of Sky before the adventure seasons began. So you can already see kind of the concept of what's going on here. Although instead of having our kind of amorphous Sky Kids with no face, these look like human children. But wow, those capes, those masks, really, really look like what we know today. Our team realized that the theme of connection would be a core element to gameplay. We made a prototype to test different ways of connection, including an option for players to hold each other's hands. This playtest became a significant milestone in our game development. And I thought that's amazing, and that was so smart. And I love this poster. It's not the exact pre-release poster, but it's very close. The pre-release poster, which is included in the Sky art book, includes a big cloud in the background and the very familiar gate in front of 4 Sky Children holding hands. And I think technically it was a bit of a challenge for them to have Sky Kids holding hands, but I guess that really this really shaped the the way that players connect with each other, and especially that our cape energy recharges, and and the fact that you can hold hands immediately after friending someone. I guess if you've never played Sky, it won't resonate. But I've spent a lot of hours playing Sky, and I really know how important this hand-holding effect was, and how much I appreciate the developers for having put this feature into the game. To anchor our game direction, we sought to finalize the core pillars of Sky thematically, tonally, and emotionally. As we approached production, we decided Sky would center around wonder, humanity, and community. Oh, this is great, right? I mean, wow. That is, Tom Zhao. Like, this must be the first iteration of the Prairie Elder. I mean, it's even holding a butterfly. And again, I'm not sure how these players are connecting, but it's like there seems to be some kind of communication going on, right? That there's a player holding up a brick with the similar thought, and above is a player with another kind of thought idea. So there, this initial, how do we connect with each other as players? And more artwork by Tom Zhao. Now we're starting to look, I mean, the color isn't the same, but it's looking wasteland-y, and that, we've got four characters, 4 Sky Kids who look like maybe they're in danger, maybe they're afraid, and they're sticking together around an ember of light. And then there's mantas, but in this, mantas maybe hadn't really been flushed out. Like, what are the quote-unquote good guys? What are the bad guys? The good creatures will encounter the bad creatures. We're still kind of flushing out those ideas at this point. So again, this is really interesting, kind of like a Cupid doll, combined with the Journey character. And here we go. See, it's Yuichiro Tanabe. Like this the artwork is really like that. The spirit of Sky is coming out of their artwork. It's like, wow, the cape, the look, I feel, is a lot more resonant than the last 2 pieces we saw. And this is good. Jackie Kajiang. I've seen also some of their artwork, and it's a lot of there's a lot of interesting resonance, I think, with that. And so this is right. I mean, what are we made up of? And I think this is a cool kind of idea, like of what is a Sky Kid as well, because we do return to the stars, right, after everything's over, and then we come back again. As the world of Sky saw numerous iterations, we kept the look of the avatar open and malleable. Once we began to design characters in a group setting, we considered the harmony of their aesthetics on screen. Our core game pillars of wonder, humanity, and community became our way of streamlining the art, design, and story. If it didn't touch upon these pillars, then it may not have been crucial to Sky. There is safety at the center, but darkness all around. Wonder. Again, this is like that scariness. Like, we can overcome the fear through our togetherness, through not being alone. Wow, it's so awesome. This is like, really looks like Isle of Dawn. Humanity. Every moment is better with other players. Oh, and I love the masks, man. It's like there's the forest mask that I'm wearing now, right? Community, a feeling that you belong to a global collective that stands for compassion and altruism. And you know, I think, man, that really goes to what draws me to this game. Is it's, you know, I mean, it's I feel silly saying this, but it's more than just a game, you know. That there's a lot to it, and that, I mean, I've met people from all over. I've met people from Serbia, from Saudi Arabia, from Malaysia, from Indonesia, from China, from the United States, from France, from Spanish-speaking countries. I'm not necessarily sure which ones sometimes. And you know, there's the built-in translator that and you know, people from Japan. That I didn't even know the translator was there when I first started playing, and realized that I can communicate. This game is designed for me to communicate with every single other player in some way. And I love the way that the friendship tree develops, that you start with only being able to communicate with your expressions. And then as the time goes on, as you invest more in your friendship, as you invest more in the game, you can communicate by using words. And I have to say, I've had a lot of really awesome times playing this game with another person that I don't know and that I never talk to. It's like we unlock friendship, we unlock high five, we never talk to each other, we fly together for like an hour, and then we part ways and we never talk, right? And I love that. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the game. I like being able to be kind and to play a game with an acquaintance that I know nothing about. And I don't know, I can't really put it into words. There's this kind of special beauty about that. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. This area introduces early artwork of the kingdom's realms, the visual moods, and the emotional arc. Okay, let's look at this. So this is the Daylight Prairie concept. Some of the concept artwork has been included in the Sky art book as postcards. Hidden Forest. Yeah, this is, wow, it looks so great. I love it. I mean, so beautiful. It really captures Hidden Forest so well, too. Okay, and this is Valley of Triumph. And you can see Valley has actually evolved quite a bit since this concept. And yeah, now that I look at these are different from the postcards. So the postcards are actually from a more developed state after the game was more solidified. Over here is Golden Wasteland. Wow, it's awesome. I just like how you can see, right, like the hand drawing, you know, the strokes and the sketch. The Vault of Knowledge. I just love how, you know, that so much of this has actually come into the game. I mean, this looks so similar to the beginning of Vault of Knowledge and Eye of Eden. And death, and you see the kind of the spirit of the Sky Kid flying through. So I mean, this is really maybe more chaotic than the death that we experience as we play Sky. You see a whale up there in the upper left-hand corner of this illustration, and kind of the broken building. So this is really the part before we enter orbit. It's similar. It's still kind of stormy, but I think the way that they've done it, and they've done it well, is they've made it feel more like relief when we finish the storm area of Eye of Eden and come out. And the concept of orbit, quite a bit different, I'd say. Looks kind of like a black hole. Maybe scarier. I think maybe kind of the original idea here is not to make orbit so scary. Is to make orbit like, hey, a kind of coming home, and here are all my friends, right? In the early stages, animal guardians were sketched as mythical figures who watched over their realms. They slowly evolved into elder ancestor humanoid characters that we recognize as being integral to the kingdom's rise and fall. And so here you see these very, very familiar beginning concepts for the elders. Together they were led by a ruler who ultimately sacrificed himself to bring birth a new generation of children of light. And so this is the part that wasn't very obvious to me at all as a player of the game, is that there is actually a seventh elder. And that elder has sacrificed himself so that we, the children of light, may be born. And so here's Isle of Dawn. Wisdom. And when I go through the art book and go through the art book accessory and walk through this in a little bit more detail, you'll see that each of the elders has an additional nickname. So I won't go through those right now. Just kind of go through their original name, main name, and the nickname we'll get to later. And I'm not dressed up. I'm dressed up in 5th anniversary clothes today. But my my normal outfit, if you look at my Sky Streamer and even my YouTube channel, is I like the Isle of Dawn elder the most, and so I dress up like him a lot. Daylight Prairie, empathy. And each of these characters has more story that I'm really excited to get into more. I guess I won't say more, but there's a reason the realm fell apart, and Eye of Eden, that the crystal cracked and it erupted and all of this, and it's very interesting as we'll go through that. Not in this session, not in this video, but later. Hidden Forest resilience. And I will tell you the Hidden Forest elder's nickname, which is Temptation. And I think that's critical, because I think she was without her, the whole process of the crystal cracking and everything, like the harvesting of light, wouldn't have happened. Although I suppose Prairie Elder also had something to do with it. And maybe Isle Elder, maybe Isle Elder's responsibility was not speaking up when it was time to speak up. The art team explored the pivotal narrative moments when each ancestor would meet with the sky children, and what would be the most impactful way to visually capture this. So here's Valley of Triumph, excellence. The brother and sister. Golden Wasteland, courage. And something that hasn't been talked about here too is how, each of these areas is supposed to represent a stage of our lives too. And so, it takes courage to kind of dig yourself out of the hole of midlife crisis, right? So anyway, again, there's a lot to dig into here and uncover. I'm trying my best not to go too deep into it. Vault of Knowledge, Faith. And here you see all of the elders together. Well, it looks like the elder herself isn't there. And here's the ruler, sacrifice. And so here it is, the character that we don't really see in the game, who is responsible for our birth, the children of light. That he sacrificed himself when he knew things had gone too far, so that we could come and that we could free the ancestors who are stuck in this realm. And that's how we do it, as you know, by reliving their memories. We free them. We bring their spirit to the temple, and the elder sends them back to the stars. And so it's because of the ruler sacrificed himself. And you can see, I think the most in-depth lore you can find about the ruler is in the Cave of Prophecies. There's a lot of little information in the murals inside the Cave of Prophecies as you complete each of those challenges. Our animators introduced non-elder civilian spirits to combine quest gameplay with emotion-centric storytelling. These became ancestor spirits dotted around each realm who share their memories. So, a moat farm. In developing the backstory, we sketched out the possible life purpose of the civilization's inhabitants. And I think this is really interesting too, is that the moats was something that, they're trying to conceptualize how do we, what's the precious thing that this civilization needs. And then they end up creating like a production about it, and this was really about light, about little pieces of light. Like you can see the flame that each sky child has, that we each have our own flame, and that when we light the altars at each of the elders' temples, one thing that's really important in all of those cutscenes is that candle that we're holding as sky children. And in fact, I always like to point out the forest elder is the one elder who's so greedy that she grabs that flame out of your hand and she puts it inside of that tetrahedron, right? And she smashes it on the anvil. So there's something that really important for her about that light, and that's really what these moats had evolved into as the game development went on. Burn and release the embers. So this is maybe the moat is those like black tetrahedrons, that we light to open doors and to activate things. Or maybe it's the ember itself. It's not entirely clear how that concept came from moats into this. And here we go. This one I like. Moat is precious, right? So here we see again. Looks to me like Laputa Castle in the Sky, Studio Ghibli, like a lot of influence there. And that the moat is something that this moat that they say is something that's precious, something that apparently is harvested. It's important to the society. We know that whatever it is, it's been over-harvested, and that was kind of the cause of the collapse of that giant, that giant red crystal in Eden. Symbiotic relationship. So I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so it began with villagers in each realm who worshiped the soul cycle as part of coexisting humanity and nature. So that must have been it, is that this symbiotic relationship was happening, and the elders and the ancestors decided, hey, wait a minute, we can use this. We can take the energy of the planet and harness it in some way, which, you know, as I think about it, it's really reminiscent of Final Fantasy VII. And as you know, Genova Chen, the CEO and like kind of main developer of that game company and the games that inspired Sky, Genova the name comes from Final Fantasy VII. And Final Fantasy VII really was a game about disrupting what was going on, the natural processes, and harvesting it and exploiting nature to create things that are useful for the production of humanity, and harming nature. And I think that some of that concept was that was an inspiration. Final Fantasy VII was an inspiration for Genova, maybe obviously, for some of what's going on here in Sky. And you can see now here, look at these rocks. Each of them have two little eyes. So, you know, there's something living about the environment here. Ancestors couldn't touch the embers directly. So I think this has evolved. As you'll see, like I mentioned, the forest elder will snatches those embers out of your hand. So this is kind of evolved a little bit. Wow, I love the stars inside of each of the characters. So obviously on the left we have the prairie elder, and here we see each of the spirits inside prairie. So I don't know which one of them are. As we look through the art more, you'll see they actually will show each of the characters. The ancestor spirits provided a snapshot of the civilization's past. Their memories offered significant texture and flavor to each realm, with layers of lore and discovery around each corner. And I think that's that's a really fitting point to go here. So it's like, okay, they've got the concept. The elders came from that original painting that we saw right at the beginning of this session. This is the giant in the clouds. And so this was the idea. We have the Sky Children have contact with these giant elders. And so, okay, we spent a lot of time building the elders, and now we have each of these realms. So we've got the 6 realms. Where does the context come from? And that's where the ancestors come in. So the ancestor spirits will come in and give a lot more context. Yeah, lore. It's lore time. And here you go. Here's Isle of Dawn. So now we're going to see each of the ancestor spirits. This is Daylight Prairie. So here we see all of our very familiar Daylight Prairie spirits. And now you see it's all in really full form. It's very detailed. The concepts have been flushed out, so it's not so basic, right? Like this stuff looks very familiar to what we've seen today. So these look familiar, right? Hidden Forest. Valley of Triumph. I guess I'll let you guys have a look. Here are the Golden Wasteland Elders. And the Vault of Knowledge Elders. The wider ecosystem involving the constellations and life cycle was considered more thoroughly while we designed the creatures. We planted hints of how light and the void impacted them historically in the world. The art team initially began with a fish design, but they evolved its form into mantas in later iterations. So here's some of these original. And I love how Ancient Creature here, you see, Ancient Creature is actually identical to what we see in what's it called? The underground caverns in Hidden Forest, and also as we're finishing up and going into orbit. These majestic creatures shepherded light back towards the stars. We designed them to elegantly move like aquatic life swimming among the clouds. And I just like the interesting that these guys had helmets too, right? So we've got kind of like whales, we've got mantas. So, and you know, it's so cool. And the colors kind of remind me of what we see in Valley of Triumph. In visualizing the void as storytellers, we presented its impact neutrally and celebrated both light and dark life forms with their own beauty. By honoring both sides of his existence equally, we were able to weave a richer world. And now, here you go, the very first picture where you get some concept of darkness. We began experimenting with colors and shapes that would compound emotions for encountering darkness in the void. And then here we go. We're finally seeing some of the void creatures. Yes. So hunting, dead, dying, saved, freed. So that's something that's interesting, right? We don't have that ability, is to save any of the void creatures. That the void creatures such as krill or dark dragons, that these were, you know, originally able to be freed. So in these artworks, void corrupted life forms are represented as dark waters, dark plants, blooms, dark crabs, and dark dragons. So that's kind of where all of this happened. And if you go into, as we explore lore more, we'll explore that cave outside of Forgotten Ark, where we see kind of the history of how the ancestors interacted with the crabs and why the crabs have turned against us. And let's see, I think I've covered everything. I don't think I've missed anything.